let's understand the different dimension. If you would observe in the last slide, which is pretty much visible here, we have used an open source. Open source has certain limitations, we'll talk about it later. But then, few of the companies which have their own proprietary languages and no outside tool or open source supports it, what do? So there, they actually go for internal test harnesses. One of the live examples as how this framework looks like. Let me give you a brief out here. Any organization which develops a product, especially which develops a product and is not into services, they want that their functionality and features should work always good. Now, how can they ensure that? Unfortunately, they can't take open source because open source do not even know what they are building in-house. So how will they support the technologies or objects of that particular product? Second, if they go for licensed tools, of course the same problem exists with licensed tools. And even if they buy it on the promise that the licensed vendor will support it, the question is how are they? So all these are the real-time problems that the core product technology companies face. Therefore, they go for in-house test harnesses. Now, what is the logic based on which it generally gets developed? The language primarily here is Perl, Python, and Java. Perl, Python primarily to check at the machine side, and Java to check at the application business layer side. So what is that they check? For any product company, one of the most critical testing aspect is how their functionality of the product working. If that is verified, then they feel a little bit more comfortable releasing their product. Now, think about it. You don't have a tool which can penetrate from UI layer. Then how will the functionality be checked? So here what they do is, or what they have started thinking to do is, that let me start checking the request and response of the data. That is, when on the UI, let us take the example of Google. When you enter anything in search and click search, the response goes to the server. At the server, it checks in the required table whether that data is there or not, associates itself with all the other primary keys, pulls up data, and then comes back at the client side, which is your screen, and reflects that these all are the things that are there with your search word. Likewise, if the harness is developed in a way that I will not go through the UI layer, but I will primarily trigger the event, the data flow event from my backend, which will go to the database, validate if that data exists, and then come back and let me know in the code that yes, that data flow is successful. Therefore, that is what is happening at the background beyond UI layer. And once that gets ascertained, then any product company owner feels that their product is working good to a level. So this is what generally the test harnesses does. Several times you would have encountered in your interviews that, do you know how to develop a test harness? What is test harness? What exactly can you develop using test harness? So these all are the critical things which actually you can answer, that what is the most important factor of developing a test harness, which is primarily to check the data flow across client and server without having UI interface into picture. This is one live test harness wherein you would see that this is TestNG wrapper, which primarily enables the tester to pull out the log of the response and the request that goes to database. It checks in the database whether that particular data exists or not, and then the request comes back to the program, and that program checks whether this particular data which actually has come back was intended by the application server or not. So as you can read it here, everything which is happening at the back end. And this is that wrapper which actually is checking all this internally. This has been developed via Java, and the underlying mechanism for developing this is that there should be a function which should interact with the Oracle database, and it should be a global function so that everyone can use it. This function should check the tables, return back the data, and then says that yes, my request is asserted. It has come back from the database. Then it connects with the application server, checks whether that data was required by the application server or not, and if yes, commits it, and then goes back. So if this operation, if this is done, and then you open the application which is hosted on application server, try to go to that page where you have performed the action, the data which actually has got transacted here will start appearing in your application. So this shows that yes, your functionality is going good, but at the same point in time you are not impacted by the vulnerable GUIs. In the agile world and the Scrum world today, when development is happening every day, it is very critical that you do not touch the UI layer the most, primarily because it changes every time. And therefore, this is one of the most reliable areas as of now to check the functionality, which is via data layer. So therefore, this particular wrapper does this particular action. But as I said, we just don't need wrappers here. We need test management tools, we need automatic triggers, we need automatic runs, and therefore various APIs have got developed wherein the results get pushed in an XML file via TestNG and then get stored in QC via the API here. So as you can see, this is how these various interactions are happening, and this in totality can be termed as automation framework when you are talking to someone in a global organization. So this is an example of the in-house test harness. Okay, so maybe, you know what, I'll take a pause of 30 seconds. Raise your hands if you have been able to appreciate the difference between a test harness and open source, and how framework needs to be designed using both. Okay, can you guys type yes if you guys have been able to appreciate this? Okay. Okay. So I'll move ahead. Now, interesting part is that I just want to take you through certain documentations. Now I'll let you know from where to find this, but the prime objective here is to check what are the objectives or the principles behind framework development. This is something which every engineer and manager and vice president struggles to define in global organizations, because everyone comes with their own thought, and to put it down or to explain becomes very difficult. But now, since you have seen what is the definition of a framework, you'll be able to appreciate this more. Let us quickly go through this. What are the things that should be there in an automation framework, irrespective of technology and tool? One, reusability of file, rerunnability of files, parallel execution, that is, files should get picked at any random order parallelly sequentially, extensibility of files, which I said that if I'm plugging in a Java file, I want an API to be exposed via that file to get connected to the automatic runner or the TeamCity agent, which is my agent to trigger periodic runs, or QC, which is my test management tool. Clear segregation of all kinds of files, because you never know which file gets impacted where, and therefore you do not want every other script to get halted because of that. Global functions, local functions, data files. These are the reusability factors. SQL file. So as we all know that we just do not check the application or any of the application on any devices based on the session data layer. We also go to databases. Reusable XML files, .vbs files, wherein you will be putting or defining the parameters which you generally use 90% of the time around the year. Each test case should correspond to each script. Okay, so this is a very flaky area. Several organizations are trying to control this, but they are not. But here the important thing is that if you want to know, if the owner of the product wants to know that how good is my testing, or if an engineer wants to put an appraisal that I have done a fantastic testing, this parameter becomes very critical, and this you cannot plan post your testing. This has to be done prior to your testing. And of course the batch, the bundling of files to create a batch. Besides this, all open hooks so that it can get integrated to various other softwares around. This is page 199 where this is listed. In the interest of time, I will not go deeper, but start noting down this page number. I'll also let you know from where can you find this documentation. So all in all, these all are some basic parameters which any architect, any engineer who aspires to be an architect, any director or manager who is letting their team know that what you should think when you're designing a framework, any engineer who is proposing to their boss that what the framework that he or she is designing, all these factors should be thought through in their programming language. And since you have seen the slide wherein the framework was, you can now understand that why am I telling all this to be a factor. And of course this is beyond tools. This does not encompass just the tools ability. Okay. So let's go to the next area. I am sure if there are few people from Oracle and Amazon, they would be excited to see this. This is the real-time implementation. The whole segregation of files, scripts, it has been done in this structure. This is a live plug and play structure if you are using QTP and QC. So let me tell you, if anybody on the webinar uses QTP and QC, then placing their file in this particular pattern which says login to QC, go to test plan area, have these two folders. One is this asset. Assets are nothing but anything beyond your scripts. Scripts are something which correspond to a test case. So anything which does not correspond to a test case but is generic in nature is asset. And therefore, in that area, you come and put your test cases or test script in assets, divide it into that if your product has multiple sub-products, then what functions are you keeping at product level? What functions are you keeping at sub-product level? And therefore put the library segregation in that particular fashion. Even when you are segregating libraries, you do not want to confuse your framework that where the SQL files are, where the scripts are, where the functions are, where the external data sheet are. And therefore where the DB connection lies, where the SQL traces lies. So this is a real-time implementation in QC, keeping into mind QTP QC integration. Likewise, similar structure can be followed for Selenium. Likewise, similar structure can be followed when you are going for internal test harnesses. If you are using mobile applications, then accordingly you can have a segregation at a product level for your mobile on-premises applications. Let us say somebody is testing an application on cloud. Whole framework remains the same, but the only thing is that in this structure, you are saying that I'm having these scripts compatible with clouds as well, and therefore I store my functions, etc. for cloud, because there is a different entry point for cloud and there is a different execution philosophy on cloud, which involves several sessions, user IDs, password security that will go into the common library area. So you know, in-depth description, you can find it in this doc, which I'll let you know from where to procure. However, in short, when you are thinking about framework, this is your next step. After identification of tool, after identification of integration of tools, after identification of the programming language that the tool uses, this is how you align all the tools, softwares and files. And going to 205, scope and naming conventions. I'll not go in detail here because I assume that all of you are pretty much exposed to the technology and the development part. But of course, you have to be very cautious. If you can see this diagram, this segregates that this is my product, this is my product family, that is sub-product. I have my functions, recovery scenarios, various different kind of files. So therefore, you have to have a naming convention in a different format pertaining to each file. The reason, one of the most critical reasons which organizations fail to understand today, is that you develop a script that is fine, but when you have 10,000 of scripts running, even if 10% script fails, which is 1,000 in number, then how quickly can you triage the failures? All these are very critical for that aspect. If you cannot triage your failures quickly, then your automation is not giving the right ROI to the company, and that's a sin. Therefore, multiple questions gets raised. Was the strategy correct? Was the person at the top able enough to design the automation framework and architecture? Are the engineers good enough at the programming side? Are the engineers capable enough to triage all the failures around it? So all these questions can be avoided via these important segregations and keeping the files in right fashion. So with this, I have briefly touched upon that what are the objectives or definition that you should look when you are about to design automation frameworks. I'll take a pause here for 30 seconds. If you have anything, just let me know. Okay, are there any hands raised?
Saurabh, there are a lot of questions coming up. If you wish to take them now, you can answer them.
Okay, there's lots of questions coming up. Okay, how can I see those questions?
You can see them in your.
I have gone into questions tab. Okay.
Tab, and I've even assigned some questions to you in your chat pane.
Okay, I'm seeing the questions now. Perfect. So you know what? I will take up these questions now rather than going ahead further. Or maybe, okay, I'll take this question in next 5 more minutes. Let me just go through one important aspect which will be very critical for the audience out here to understand. That particular aspect is that let us say that with the right technology, with the right skill set, with the right engineers, with the right management, we have designed a fantastic framework. And especially in agile world, wherein you do not see UIs nowadays so frequently. Tools are not so intuitive. However, you have gone through a mix of test harnesses and the tools. And now the question here is that, is it that the framework is done, there cannot be any continuous improvements? Primarily because if you will see, let me go back to the slide here. If you will see in this slide, it is not just tools. Here the tools part come. Let me highlight this. Tools part come. Here infrastructure comes. Here server side areas comes. Here networking and bandwidth possibility comes. So therefore, our hardware, bandwidth, and all working together actually brings a fantastic framework. But the problem is that it never works in a way one can think it to be in an ideal scenario, primarily because there's lots of variables involved. Now, what are those things that one should look out for in terms of continuous improvements? So I want to just quickly highlight that, and then I'll take the questions and answers. So I will go to this page, 194. 194, this page talks about that what are the things, that will help you identify the problems. Probable issue identification, segregation, and tracking mechanism. This is a this is a real case study. I have done it with Oracle, Amazon, CA, Microsoft, and a few more organizations that services industry side. And what we have found that few of the failures are functional issue, good enough, go to the product, get it checked. Few of the issues are intermittent functional issues, go to the log, get it checked. Few of the issues are seed data issue. All these are related to product. Object mismatch issue, it can be a possible bug, it can be a framework issue. However, the interesting part was the environment related issues, which is network bandwidth. So therefore, you should have in your coding development the intelligence to flush out in logs via the logger events after every bundle of code that how the output has come in that code. And this may help you segregate down the line that which areas are failing where. If there are blank pages, that means that it can be related with either machine optimization or server side optimization or the data request and response from database. If it is about the jobs processing at the application side, which takes huge time, then it can be related with costly SQLs, which is not tester's problem. But then it is good for a tester to tell the developer that where things may be possibly failing. And of course, that tool side or the test harness side, if few of the things are not getting recognized intermittently or continuously. In the benefit of time or in the interest of time, I'll not go deeper. But these are few important takeaways which have come out of the research from the real-time global organizations, and I wanted to share that quickly with you. Before jumping on to questions, let me just tell you where can you find this. So this is the book. You can find it on Amazon or Flipkart. I have told you the page number. The last half of the book comprises of automation framework. I hope they'll be very useful. I wish it will be very useful for all of you. All these organizations which are listed here, I have done enough R&D to find out what they need, what they aspire for, and what is that is currently existing. It's a mix of all these things. Good thing is that this has got the bestseller in the World Book Fair. So this will be primarily for all age ranges, experience ranges, but I would say that if any engineer aspires to become architect, or if anyone aspires to handle the automation unit, global automation unit at a management level, then this book will be very useful for them. And this primarily, I would say, will be for the engineers in the experience range of 1 to 9 years, who wants to know the nuances of automation, means when I am automating, what all are the things that I should keep in mind during coding. So I would say that here, this would be pretty much useful for people who are in the experience range of 1 to 9 years working on hands at the automation side. And all the evidences that I talked about was from this book. So therefore the page number that you have written is from this book. And quickly now I'll jump on to the question and answers area. Okay. Okay, I just minimized it. Okay, let me start taking it one by one. QTP WebDriver. Santosh